There it goes.
Yep. Cup of Joe with Grandpa Dez. Hey, Robert, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, you're not a grandfather. You're not that old.
I am, believe it or not.
Oh
You
my
you are
God.
too, aren't you?
No, anybody who knows me as well as you know, my son recently passed.
Yeah.
Damn, it's gonna be a month on Sunday. He had no children, so no.
Okay.
And I have no other children, so
Okay. Oh man.
and,
I
and
I wasn't gonna bring that up because
yeah.
I didn't know if you
No,
wanted
no,
to
no,
talk
that's
about it.
understandable, but it came with the conversation. You asked
Sure.
if I was I'm old enough to be a grandfather, but
Yeah.
no, I'm not a grandfather. Uh,
For
um,
some reason I could have sworn I heard you say. So I think you're 2 years older than me, right? You're
I'm
53?
I'll be 54 in what's today? Today is the 15th.
Yeah.
So in 22 to 3 weeks, I'll be 54.
Oh, cool. May 1st or May 8th?
May 7th. May
May
7th.
7th. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm 51. Just turned 51. So yeah, you're 2 years older than me for a couple more weeks. Yes, I'm so happy to talk to you, man. I first heard you on, I think it was the Fight Game podcast a few years ago. And as you
Y-
know, I'm not the biggest boxing fan in the
Right,
world,
right, right.
but I do enjoy your shows, and I find that when I listen to them, I am both entertained and educated. And I appreciate that because it's not everybody that can offer that to a conversation. You do both of those very well.
I believe in the 3 E's principle: educate, enlighten, and entertain. You
Oh,
can't do one without the other because we know a lot of people that are very bright, very intelligent, but if they're talking to you about anything, physics,
mhm.
astrology, politics, if they're going, oh well, I love Biden's foreign policy, and then you're snoring because you got to have a little jazz to it. Now, too much entertainment, like Fox News, is not good. You got to have a
Mhm.
combination of both, or ESPN, which has gotten god awful and it's unwatchable anymore. You got to have a little bit of all three for you to sit back, especially the entertainment and educational part.
So who do you have any inspirations in terms of like who you try to follow? Because I don't know, when I hear you, I
Mhm.
hear Stephen A. Smith, but I hear, like, I think you do it better, believe it or not. You
Uh,
just don't have the high
I had
profile.
I had this shtick way before Stephen A. It's
Okay.
funny when Stephen A. first started because I used to be a fan of Stephen A. when he was a sports writer in Philadelphia, and when he would come on ESPN for the very first time in the late '90s, early 2000s. Stephen A. and I are about the same age, so
Okay.
when he first started, I was like, I like this brother. This guy knows what he's talking about. Then when he got full of himself and he
He's got
believed
like
the gimmick.
he's got like one and a half of your three E's.
Oh my God. He used to have all threes. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I think, the power of the dollar.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the entertainment,
Yeah.
and maybe half of the education and zero of the enlightenment.
No, because he's just doing a gimmick. He's
Yeah.
just doing a gimmick.
Yeah.
But as far as who I try and be like, my biggest inspiration was my father. My father
Okay.
taught me everything about boxing, about baseball, because
Mhm.
and basketball in the NFL. My two biggest loves though starts with boxing because that was the first sport my father introduced me to because he was a former amateur boxer, and
Okay.
then baseball because my father being a Puerto Rican heritage,
Mhm.
basically when he was born with a baseball in one hand and a boxing glove in the other. I mean, his whole family played baseball, and he played some baseball in high school, and he was an amateur boxer, and but unfortunately that was cut short because he led a life he shouldn't have lived as a teen, and he went
Okay.
to prison when he was 19. He was 20 when I went 21 when he went to prison. I was only 18 months, and he was gone for 3 months. But when he came back, all the time that we spent, we bonded over sports.
Can I is there any chance were you named after Roberto Clemente?
See, my father tries and tell people that, but it's a lie. It's a lie.
Okay.
My name, I was named after my father. My father has the same
Oh,
name I have.
okay. All right.
No middle name,
Okay.
Roberto Silva Senior, and I'm Junior.
Ooh, I like the accent.
Yeah. So, but my father used to tell that nonsense, especially when he was inebriated. Oh yeah, My father named me after Clemente. No, he
Oh,
didn't.
bullshit.
No, my father was born in 1948, right?
Yeah.
No one knew about Clemente in Puerto Rico until 56, maybe, when he was a
Yeah.
rookie with the Pittsburgh Pirates. No, no. So he liked, but Clemente was his idol.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The night Clemente died, I was 4 years old. It was New Year's Eve, 1972. The next day would be January 1st, 1973.
Yeah.
And anybody who knows anything about Clemente, he was a humanitarian, and he was taking food to Nicaragua because the people of Nicaragua had suffered a massive, massive earthquake a few days prior, killing thousands of people and leaving maybe over 1 million or 2 million people homeless. Clemente sent food the first day, and it got back to him that the government was stealing it for themselves.
Oh.
So Clemente was like, no, we gotta do this better. This time I'm gonna accompany the food and the medical supplies and make sure the people gets it, because when I get off the plane, they're not gonna steal from me. I'm Roberto Clemente.
Right.
But I don't know who advised him to go on the plane with the medical supplies and the food. The plane was too much weight. It was overweight. And Clemente was gung-ho about getting this food to the people in Nicaragua. The plane might have went 90 yards before it exploded into the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
and so when my father got the news, Paul,
yeah,
he got the news sometime that evening. It came over. I don't know where you from, Paul.
I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Man, I got so many Canadian friends off of social media, man. Shout out to all the Canadians out there, man. Sebastian,
He's
I
listening.
got a lot of I've met a lot of great people in Canada. My girlfriend's father has lived in Toronto for the last 30 to 40 years. Her sister lives in Toronto.
Okay.
Her brother, who passed away at a young age, he grew up in Toronto. So I know if I have to escape from this country, I know where to go.
Hey, we got 3 extra rooms, man. I'd be more than happy to have you. And
so that night, Paul, to finish the story about Clemente, when my father heard it over the all news radio station in New York, 1010 Wins, he started crying like that was his brother who died. And it was the first time, I'm 4 years old, I ever saw my father cried. He was in buckets. I was like, Pop, what happened? He was like, leave me alone. Oh my God. I can still see it to this day. My mother was trying to comfort him. She was crying because she's also from Puerto Rico, and that is the single greatest icon ever from that island. But she was more crying because her husband, my father, was crying. My father was crying because he loved that man. That's how the people of Puerto Rico love Clemente. If you want to compare, the only guy in America that you could compare to Clemente from PR is Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, I could see that. Now, how has there never been like a blockbuster movie made about Clemente? Like I just looked it up while you were talking, and I mean, there was an independent movie in 2013 called Baseball's Last Hero or something. But
I saw that. That was pretty excellent.
But I mean, like this should be like a blockbuster.
Funding.
Like how is Will Smith not
to make it
okay.
Well, in order for, first of all, you have to have a black Puerto Rican play Clemente. And while Will was tremendous as Richard Williams, he was mediocre as Muhammad Ali.
I'm not saying it should be Will Smith playing him, but he should be bankrolling this.
Oh, he's got the production company, without a doubt. Yeah. And Will's my age. Will's our age.
Yeah.
Will knows Clemente. Will knows about Clemente. So
yeah, and the younger people need to.
Yes.
Because you know, I mean, you hear about Jackie Robinson, and I mean, not to downplay anything about that.
They're on the same level.
Yeah, but Clemente is
what Clemente was to Latin baseball players. Jackie Robinson was to black baseball players.
And here's the thing, the Latin baseball players, I mean, they still care about baseball. Black people don't. I mean, as a rule, you know, like you don't see black people are choosing basketball and football.
You know why? You know why? Especially with
money.
It's financial.
Yeah.
It is expensive to have your child enroll in a baseball program, even play high school or junior high school, middle school baseball is expensive. My nephew, he's 16 years old. He runs track because
Yeah.
all he needs a pair of sneakers and a
Yeah.
jogging suit, right?
And yeah, basketball, you just need
And
sneakers
basketball,
and
you need
yeah.
short sneakers, tank top, and a basketball, right?
Yeah. And
It was
and
funny. A lot of them play football though. Football's more expensive than all the sports.
right, but if you've got the size, you can get bankrolled.
Right.
And that's the
Yes.
thing, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And in the dirty little secret in Latin America that, a lot of people don't know is the Major League Baseball teams are funding these basically baseball camps
In
for these
Venezuela
players,
and the
yeah.
Dominican Republic,
And
because
like 10 years old, 10 years
that's
old,
where
you're living at these things.
the bulk of the talent now is coming from Venezuela and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Not as much in Puerto Rico as it used to be. They
Mhm.
do have camps in Puerto Rico, but for some reason, and I don't understand this, it used to be in Puerto Rico that it was boxing and baseball. Is that what the youth were into? Now it's basketball and baseball, and a lot of kids are now playing basketball at a much higher level than they used to play baseball and participate in boxing. So that is cut into the baseball players from Puerto Rico. But the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, that's every young kid's dream, is to
Yep.
make it out of those countries by playing Major League Baseball.
And
by the way,
the teams will
best,
funnel money to their families, and then they, basically like 10,000 players will get these little tiny $5,000, $10,000 contracts in the hopes that maybe 50 will pan out, and then they have the rights. Like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was with the Blue Jays when he was 14.
But he had an end though.
Yeah, of course. But I mean,
it
that's
wasn't
just one
like he was
example.
amongst
Yeah.
he had an end, and his younger brother
Yeah.
looks like he's going to be a star too. Kudos to Vlad Sr., who, in my opinion, was the greatest Dominican baseball player I ever seen.
And his
Watching
grandma.
him was a joy. He sired one son. He might become the Seattle Slew of baseball, where he's siring studs after stud.
Or what's that? Lorenzo Ball's dad.
Yeah, but
like him. But he'll be better.
Was it Lamar Ball?
That's it.
Yeah, Lamar Ball. Yeah, the siren or Richard Williams with Serena and Venus, where he's siren these incredible athletes. Vlad
and great human beings too.
Vlad Jr. is fun to watch, and I heard from Sebastian and other Toronto Blue Jay fans that he's the nicest guy. He talks to the media. It only makes sense because Vlad Sr. was a great guy. Vlad Sr. I went to see back when the Expos when the Nationals were the Expos in Montreal back in 98, 99, year or two before my father died. Took him to a Met versus Expos game, and we went to batting practice, right? And before batting practice, we saw Vladimir Guerrero signing autographs, senior signing autographs with all these kids taking pictures. And my father's like, man, I love this because that's a star right there, and he's not acting like a star.
We just saw that the Jays just played in your neck of the woods in Yankee Stadium, and they showed Vlad Guerrero Jr. signing for half an hour. He's signing, everything.
He learned that from his pops.
Absolutely,
and the tradition continues. Love Jr. Junior to me is the most exciting player in baseball today. Love watching him play, and he swings and runs just like his father.
Did you see the game he had the other night?
Well, he was three home
runs,
and he had just come off a 0-for-8 slump, and he came and he beat the Yankees by himself that night. He's a godsend to watch.
And did you see what happened in the? It was early in the game. He got stepped on.
Yeah, and didn't matter.
He comes back and hits 2 more home runs.
If he continues on his path, Paul.
Yeah, Triple Crown.
He has the potential. He might win that one. He might win that this year. We'll see. He has the potential to become the greatest Canadian baseball player of all time because he was born in Montreal.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there was actually some controversy because when they did the World Baseball Class, or they're talking about the World Baseball Classic, he's like, who's he going to play for? And Canada obviously wants him to play for Canada.
Oh, they want him badly. I know. Yeah. So does the Dominican Republic.
But that's the thing, and I think he wants to play for the Dominican Republic.
I know why, because of his father.
Exactly.
Because he wants to represent his father's legacy. So I would understand it, but I think eventually he will play for Canada, especially in the Olympics. I can see him playing for the Canadian baseball
There,
team.
there was a controversy. We have an award up here called the Lou Marsh Award, and well, that name is a controversy in itself, but I won't
All
get
right.
into that. But it's Canadian Athlete of the Year, and I mean, Vlad should have won that last year, and a lot of the voters wouldn't vote for him because he considers himself Dominican. So they voted for one of the Canadian Olympic athletes. And I think the other thing is, you know what? He'll have lots of years like this. We can give it to him anytime. And whereas this Olympian might not ever have a moment like this. So they gave it. It was the guy that won the decathlon. So, I mean, you know, that's pretty big too. You know, you win the decathlon, you're a pretty great athlete. So, but it was a lot of controversy over that. And I think Vlad should have won it last year. But, you know, if it was my vote, I would have given it to him.
You know how hard it is to win a decathlon? That guy earned that award.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I can't remember his name, but
That is,
there was a lot. I mean, you could pick up a hockey player any year. You know, we have
how many
lots.
times has Sydney won that award?
I think never.
No.
I think Gretzky won it twice. I mean, they just like if it's an Olympic year and a Canadian athlete wins a.
What about Lennox Lewis? Did he ever win that award?
Let me have a look. If he didn't, it's probably the same reason. Garth, I'm gonna pull that up. Lou Marsh,
because when he won the gold medal for you guys in 1988.
He did, yeah. So if he did win it, it probably would have been that year.
Okay.
Here we go. I'm looking it up right now.
Who won it in 88, 89?
88 probably. Ben Johnson won in 87. Carolyn Waldo, synchronized swimmer, won it in 88. Okay. Wayne Gretzky in 89.
All right.
Here,
they probably used the fact that he was born in England against Lennox.
So Sidney Crosby won it in 2000. He won it twice, 2007, 2009. That's not bad. Well, but he hasn't won it since. I mean, that's 13 years ago.
That's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Bianca Andreescu won a couple of years ago when she won the U.S. Open. Joey Votto won it one year.
Joey Votto right now.
And 2010, twice. Right so now, he's won it as much as Sidney Crosby.
Right now, Votto, I consider him the second greatest Canadian baseball player of all time. Number one being Ferguson Jenkins, a guy that no one talks about.
Where's Larry Walker on your list? 4?
I'd have him I've got Larry Walker third. I've got number 1 Ferguson Jenkins, number 2 Joey Votto, number 3 Larry Walker, and eventually Vladimir, if he continues at pace, he's going to overtake all 3 of them.
Oh yeah. The one guy who I think is criminally underrated is Donovan Bailey, and he won it in '96. But
he only won it one time.
Yeah. And I think that's the year he won. He set the world record.
He was a great track and field star.
And clean.
I love watching. Yeah. Definitely 100. Unlike Ben Johnson,
exactly,
who was never the same after they caught him.
Yeah. Alphonso Davies won 2020, which I think he might win it once or twice more. He's a soccer player, one of the top 10 players in the world right now, and he didn't actually help Canada qualify for the World Cup, but he'll be playing for Canada in the World Cup in November, December.
Oh, good. It's something to look forward to watching. All right,
absolutely,
good.
Yeah.
Good.
So man, we're going all over the place here. So I want to talk a little bit about boxing. Is that Hagler in your picture?
No, that's Thomas Hearns.
Thomas Hearns. Oh,
my all-time favorite fighter. He's the first fighter.
How could I miss that? That doesn't look anything like Hagler. I'm old.
Paul. That was the first fighter. I started watching boxing in 1977. Same year he made his pro debut. He was the first fighter I followed from the beginning of his career to the end of his career. So he's my all-time favorite fighter. I mean, my all-time favorite boxing figure is Muhammad Ali.
Right.
But I didn't see Ali till 77 when he's way past his prime.
Yeah.
I saw Hearns at the beginning.
Now, when you say saw, do you mean like saw in person or on TV?
No, well, I didn't see him on TV for the first year because he didn't have any network fights until 78. I followed the first fighter I followed from the beginning of his career because at the time, my father used to buy the Ring magazine every month, the monthly Ring magazine back then. And the first time they mentioned Thomas Hearns after his pro debut, my father was like, "Look at this guy right here. He's special." Okay. Because my father had saw him as an amateur boxer. He said, "This guy is going to set records." And Hearns is one of the anybody who knows you and I know that we do articles and podcasts for the Fight Game Media website and podcast feed. I'm doing a series of articles called "The 45 Greatest Fighters of All Time." I'm up to number 14.
Yeah.
There is no spoiler. Thomas Hearns is one of the 10 greatest fighters of the last 45 years, and you'll see when I place him when he comes. He was the greatest offensive fighter I've ever seen. He had every punch in his arsenal. The closest I ever saw to him was Lennox Lewis. When Lennox Lewis got under Emmanuel Stewart, Stewart made him his heavyweight version of Thomas Hearns.
Wow. And so that must be hard to place when it's your favorite fighter. Like, and you're trying to be objective because you actually have some credibility.
Yeah,
unlike me.
I've got. I'm not going to say where I place them, but when you see the people below him and above him, you could see I'm justified in where I put him. I would never put him number one because I'm not biased. He's not the greatest fighter I've ever seen. He's not the greatest fighter, especially when he's lost to two guys that I got above him in Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard.
Okay, so I'm looking at his pre-fight record. So he was 40-1 going into this fight. Good Lord. And Hagler was 62-2. Like, and they call
that. And by the way, those two losses that Hagler had, he was robbed both of those fights. Hagler should have been undefeated going into that fight.
I remember this fight. Like, I mean, and I'm not like like I've told you, I wasn't a huge
It's on the short list of greatest fights in boxing history.
Well, it's April 15th, 1985. So I've been 14.
Which is the 37th. Today's the 37th anniversary of that fight.
Oh my goodness. Holy crap.
We got a bunch of IDs on this episode.
What a coincidence. I'll have to use the poster as the cover photo for this show.
Go.
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow. Imagine that. And it's your favorite fighter. And I'm looking at the poster and I was like, how could I have thought that? And I know, like in my head, I know, I think just in my head, I knew that was Hagler or Hearns and I just used the wrong name. But
Paul, that night, my father and I, we had to hold back tears because we thought Hearns had the perfect style to beat Hagler, but he allowed himself to get into a slugfest. And while it was great while it lasted, you're not out slugging marvelous Marvin Hagler.
No.
And he wound up getting knocked out cold in the third round. And man, that was hurtful because we knew he had the ability to beat Hagler had he tried to box. But no, he wanted to try and knock out Hagler, and that's the wrong thing to do because Hagler, Paul, had one of the greatest chins in the history of boxing. I never saw him on the floor struggling to get up. He was only knocked down one time in his career, and it should have been a slip. It should have been called a slip, not a knockdown.
In my mind, I thought for some reason that I had been training with my uncle he was teaching me to drive, and that's what I thought was when I was hearing about this fight. But then I'm looking at the date and it's 1985, and there's no way that was 1985. It had to have been 1987 because that's when I was 16 and I would have got my beginner's driver's license.
April 6, 1987 was the controversial fight between Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard.
That's the one I'm thinking of then. Hagler Leonard. Yeah. Okay. Because we were driving and I remember hearing about it while I was driving. And I guess I was probably already a fan of Hagler from the Hagler Hearns fight.
Right.
And she's Hagler Leonard, you said, right?
It was
so, and then that
April 6, 1987, Marvin Hagler versus Sugar Ray Leonard.
And then shortly after that, or I think the next year, was when Leonard fought my hometown guy, Donnie Lalonde, in a fight where Vince McMahon lost his ass.
That was the fight when I knew Sugar Ray Leonard was done because Donnie Lalonde was a very limited fighter. He had a tremendous power. That's it. He couldn't box.
Where's Lalonde on your top 45?
Somewhere around 700.
That might be high.
But one thing about Donnie Lalonde, he could hit, and he dropped Leonard twice in that fight.
Yeah. He he was our, kind of great white hope, I guess you could call him in Canada. But I mean, I knew like he wasn't a good fighter.
He was very limited. He had great power, but that's all he had. He was like the white version of Donovan Razor Ruddock. Ruddock had tremendous power, but as a boxer, he couldn't outbox you. He had to knock you out, and if he couldn't knock, Lennox Lewis decapitated him, just destroyed him.
His final fight, Lalonde's final fight, was here in Winnipeg at CanWest Global Park, which is actually where the Winnipeg Goldeyes play now. And he lost in unanimous decision to way over the hill, Virgil Hill.
And, Virgil Hill could beat him right now.
Yeah, I think and isn't he dead?
No, Virgil Hill's still alive.
Oh yeah,
Hill's
you're
still,
right.
no,
You're right.
Virgil
Yeah,
Hill's
he's
still
58. He's 58, yeah.
Virgil Hill, one of the greatest jabs in boxing history, and my all-time favorite, taking it back to Thomas Hearns.
Yeah.
Thomas Hearns was past his prime when he fought a prime Virgil Hill, and he outboxed Virgil Hill to win Virgil Hill's light heavyweight championship back in June of 1991. And that night, my father and I watched that fight, and we was proud of Tommy, and we was hoping Tommy would retire. Tommy fought another 16 years after that.
Yeah. Wow.
Unreal.
2007, he was still fighting, eh? Wow.
That was his last fight in 2000. It was either 2006 or 2007 was his final fight. He won the fight, but he was in against a tomato can. It wasn't like he fought somebody, a live body. The guy wasn't a live body he beat. There was something I wanted to, that you were talking about. Oh, we were talking about it. Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Winnipeg Jets. Give me a brief history of the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I don't know, like I don't know if you can see my video, but behind me there is
I see your video.
the Heritage Classic. So the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers, they both started at the same time in 1972. They started in the World Hockey Association, which was basically, the AEW to WWE.
That was the Gordie Howe League, right?
Correct. And Bobby Hall.
Right.
And so basically,
wait a minute. Bobby Hall played for the
Jets. Yep.
I didn't know. Wait a minute. Hold up. I always thought Bobby Hall spent his entire career in the NHL and then he retired.
No.
I learn something new every day.
So what happened was in 1972, he was having a contract dispute with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right.
And the Winnipeg Jets offered him the very first $1 million contract to a pro hockey player. It was over, 6 or 7 years or something.
Right.
He signed with the Winnipeg Jets. It was Portage and Main, which is the most famous intersection in Canada and also the coldest. He signed that contract at Portage and Main in front of, like 40,000 people.
Wow.
And he put that league on the map. Like you call it the Gordie Howe League. And I mean, Gordie Howe was a big part of it too.
When I started watching sports in 1977, I wanted to watch everything. And I became a huge New York Islanders fan.
Okay.
I followed the Islanders throughout Mike Bossy's entire career.
The Islanders were so good back then.
When Bossy retired, I retired. I stopped watching. Bossy was my guy. And when I first started watching hockey, 77, the Sporting News, New York Post, they give results of the who was Gordie Howe playing for?
The Hartford Whalers.
And because I'm in New York, because I'm in New York. They would give you the Hartford Whalers results. We even
at that time they might have been called the New England Whalers.
Whatever their name was, they had a lot of coverage on Gordie Howe.
Sure,
and I'm like, oh, okay. So that's why from that moment on, I always called it the Gordie Howe League. Now,
for sure,
correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he have his sons play with him also?
He did. Mark and
Howe,
Marty.
Right?
Mark and Marty Howe. So he was he was a skating grandfather. He actually came back to the NHL in 1980. So he was, I think, 53 or 54 years old. And he actually scored 15 goals and made the All-Star team.
When they expanded, when they brought the team, when they brought the WHA,
that's when the Winnipeg Jets came in. That's when the Edmonton Oilers with Gretzky came in. So back to the Jets.
One last
go ahead.
Question before you go back to the Jets. Did Gretzky ever play in the WHA?
He did.
He played in the WHA.
So he signed a contract with
rookie year.
Indianapolis Pacers. And the Indianapolis Pacers were about to go belly up and they were trying to sell the contract. So this is a famous story. The owner of the Winnipeg Jets, I think his name was Barry Shankarow, and the owner of the Edmonton Oilers, Peter Pocklington, played a game of backgammon. And the winner of the game was going to get the rights to trade for Gretzky. And Peter Pocklington won. Yep. And so then when the Edmonton Oilers came into the NHL, they were allowed to protect 2 players. And Gretzky was one of them. And the rest of their team was available to be drafted by anybody in the NHL. The NHL just robbed those teams blind.
Do you remember who the other player was?
I think it was a goalie. Like maybe Eddie Mio, but don't correct me on that.
Let me ask you a question. Was Grand Fuhrer and Messier in the system yet or not?
So Messier had played in the WHA, and he played for the Cincinnati Stingrays. So then he was up for grabs in the draft, and the Oilers drafted him in the first round.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't actually play. And then Fuhrer played later. I was living in Victoria, BC at the time, and Grant Fuhrer was playing junior hockey. So I got to see him every weekend, and then he got drafted in 1982 by the Oilers, I think,
I
81
was
or
I
82.
was a huge fan of Grant Fuhr. Loved it. He one of the most underrated goal.
Yeah,
What I
one
hate,
of the big
Paul.
cokeheads in the
What I hate,
NHL too.
Paul. What I
Yeah.
hate, Paul, is that they they don't look at his greatness as a goalie because of who he played with.
Hmm.
But on a team like that, Paul, and you would know better than me because I stopped
Absolutely.
watching I stopped watching hockey after 1987. And Fuhr continued to have a great career.
Yeah.
Even if you have a great offensive weaponry with Messier and Gretzky, you still gotta have somebody to stop the puck, man.
So what Fuhr would do is like they'd be up like 5-0, and he'd lose interest. So his goals against average didn't look very good, but
Right,
when the game was on the line and
right.
they need to make a save, to a man, they would tell you they didn't want anybody but Grant Fuhr in that net. And so he could turn it on when he needed to, which is why he's a Hall of Famer.
He
You know,
belongs in the Hall of Fame.
yeah, absolutely. So to the Jets. So in
Yeah.
1977, they became the first professional team in North America to start using European players extensively, and they brought
Okay.
in Anders Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen, who ended up playing for the Rangers later.
I
But
remember both of them come to New York at one
they
point?
did, yeah.
Yeah.
When the Jets went to they
Right.
lost them, like when the Jets went to the NHL.
Mhm.
So basically the Winnipeg Jets were, outside of the Montreal Canadiens, were probably the most favorite team outside of North America. You go to Sweden, you go to
Okay.
Finland, you go to Russia, people have Winnipeg Jets jerseys to this day because of that, because they were the ones that were bringing over players from those leagues. But when they came to the NHL, they got raped. Essentially, they were allowed to protect two players. I think they protected Morris Lukowich and somebody else. And by 1981, they were the worst team in the league. They won 9 games out of 80, and then but they finished last and were able to draft Dale Hawerchuk.
Yeah,
And
I remember
yeah.
because at that same time, who was it? The Colorado Rockies?
Yep.
Who became the New Jersey Devils?
Yep.
They were just as bad. Those were the laughing stocks of the league.
Yeah, well, Gretzky. So the one misstep in Wayne Gretzky's whole career, I think it was 1982, after the Colorado Rockies moved to New Jersey, he played a game against them. I think the Oilers won like 12-3. Gretzky had like 5 goals and 3 assists, and they were talking to him after, and he says, "This doesn't mean anything. They're a Mickey Mouse organization." And oh my God, he got
quote. He got
yeah.
raped. He got raped in the media for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's the only misstep he ever made in his whole career.
Oh
And
my God.
30 years later, people still talking about it.
But he was right. He should have.
He
kept
was
that
totally
as
right. But his dad taught him better.
Yeah.
Walter Gretzky, salt of the earth, passed away last year. Should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Hopefully he will be someday. But yeah, he was ashamed of that for years.
By the way, eventually the Devils became a great franchise.
Oh, yes. And the Jets, not so much. They ended up moving to Arizona, and then we didn't have a team for 16 years. And then in 2011, they came back, and that's the new team. The New Jets, which came from Atlanta Thrashers, our friend Keela Cash's hometown.
Well, I remember as a kid, 77,
Atlanta Flames.
The Atlanta Flames, who became the Calgary Flames.
Absolutely. Ryan Pike, my buddy, works. He covers them.
I remember the Atlanta Flames because they played in front of. I think they might have played in front of 500 people a night at the Omni.
Yeah, and that was before COVID.
Yeah.
So you know what?
I didn't understand back then, Paul. Having a hockey team in the South didn't make any sense. I don't know why they attempted to expand into Atlanta.
Twice.
Yeah.
But
Nashville has done well.
Nashville, I mean, Tampa Bay's doing well.
Yes.
Florida Panthers, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who wants to go see hockey in Miami? The old joke was, there's only 50,000 Canadians that live in Florida, and the only reason they moved there is because they hate hockey.
The only team that draws in Miami are the Heat when they're good, because when they're awful, they don't draw. The Dolphins could go 0-27, and they're gonna sell out the games. All right. The Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins, whatever you call them, even the 2 years they won the World Series, they couldn't draw flies.
The highest paid team in Miami is probably the Hurricanes, and they do okay.
They haven't done well in years. No,
they not drawing. Okay,
no,
but they are the highest paid team.
At one point they were, not anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I managed.
They
haven't been good for 20 years.
I just noticed this. We're probably pretty close to the end of this, even though it
Right.
feels like we just started. And we're 35 minutes in, and I managed to avoid talking about something that our buddy Sebastian told me not to bring up. And that
Bring it
is
up.
the
Let's
guy
talk
on my
Steiners.
shirt. The
Let's
guy
talk
on my not the
Steiners.
Steiners. No, I love the Steiners. The guy on my shirt's brother. He'll always be Owen's older brother to me. I'm like the only person in Canada that doesn't care for the man, and I know you're a big fan.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. As a man or as a professional wrestler?
He's a great professional wrestler.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey. Look. As far as being a man, I never met the man, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I know he has a beautiful wife. So
Oh yeah. Now he had a beautiful wife that he screwed around on too.
He had a beautiful wife that she was Italian, right? Also before.
Before, yeah, but in between the two, yeah, in between
because
Julie and
Julie that he fucked over Julie. I ain't gonna lie. And he's honest
kids.
in the book.
You know what? And that's the thing. And the funny thing is before I read the book, I probably didn't feel the way I felt about him now. So it's probably too honest, you know?
No, he was ultra honest because he talked about all the shenanigans and everything he did on the road.
Actually,
and
if you look behind me, I got Bret Hart's book. He's just behind Ric Flair there.
That's a great book. That's a great fucking book.
Best wrestling book ever.
Oh,
Mox's is fine, but Bret's is best.
Yeah, that's the best. And I like Have a Nice Day is one of my favorite wrestling books of all time.
And the one in the middle there, I'll have to send you sometime. Deuce is Wild by another great Canadian author, Paul Lace-Fontaine.
Great, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, but my favorite all-time wrestler is the guy on my shirt here, Owen Hart.
I love Owen, and Paul, explain to me how no one's in prison for what happened that night. Explain to me how no one's in prison for attempted murder. No, never mind, attempted for murder, because that was a crime.
Money,
and then
money,
they continued the card.
Money. That's it. Like, I mean, okay, I'll be honest with you. Like, I don't think that I think WWE was negligent. I don't think it comes up to the level of homicide, but they definitely were negligent. And I mean, and there's no good reason at all. And I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of Owen Hart, and at the time, I hated everything about that angle that they were doing. And I'll tell you, when I was watching the pay-per-view when he passed away, and I mean, me and my friend were like just hoping, almost praying that it was an angle, that or maybe it wasn't Owen under the mask, because they'd done a few times where it was somebody else to throw people off, it was Jeff Jarrett or a jobber or something. And I'm like, oh God, I hope to God it wasn't Owen. And of course it was. And when you talked about your dad crying, like I was 20, was it 99? Yeah, so I was 28. Yeah. I cried like hard.
Let me tell you something, Paul. I have never, and I never will, watch the footage. I didn't know until about 10 years ago that there was actual footage of him dying in the ring. I can't watch that.
Oh, I would never watch that. I've gone back and tried to watch even just the pay-per-view, and I can't. I get to that point where Jarrett and Deborah are doing that interview, and they're clearly shook up, and I can't. I mean, I've watched like the rest of it, like live. I watched it, but I've never watched it since. I think The Undertaker won the title later that night, and I can't watch it.
What was the main event? Was the Undertaker Stone Cold match?
I think so. Yeah.
And then no one remembers.
And then I think Kane won the belt the next day or something. Like that whole thing, or no, it wouldn't have been the next day, because the next day they did the Owen Hart tribute.
They did the Owen, and
you know that one I've gone back and watched.
The thing I hated about that episode was Stone Cold's hypocrisy.
Yes. Yeah.
That really pissed me off. I hated that. He did nothing, and he did nothing but badmouth Owen from the minute. Owen didn't hurt him on purpose. Stone Cold always felt Owen hurt
I think purpose, he thought. I don't think he thought it was on purpose, but I do think he thought Owen was careless.
Okay.
And I don't think that's the truth. Like I don't think so either. It just happened. Like it was a bad idea.
It was a mistake.
Yeah. It was a bad idea by both of them. And and he took it. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like Bret and Goldberg. Where Bret today
Bret has come around today, and he he has great things to say about Goldberg.
Okay.
If you
You know
ever
what?
see him tweet,
If you
yeah,
see that, you need to send it to me
yeah.
because I need to be changed. I need my mind changed
But
on
in his
Brett.
book, he ripped Goldberg.
Oh yeah.
He
But his book was written like 20 years ago. So,
it-
or
yeah, this
almost
book. Let me
almost
see,
like two
2007,
oh, so
2006.
15, 16
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, so I think, but the Steiners, you just did a show
Look,
with Sebastian about the Steiners.
I loved the Steiners. They my my two favorite tag teams of all time were Doom and the Steiners, and they had some great matches. Rick and Scott were a tremendous team.
They
And
were.
what Sebastian and I were talking about yesterday is a damn shame you didn't have the 1999 Scott promo compare combined with the 1991 Worker Scott Steiner. That would
Oh,
have been the greatest wrestler of
yes.
all time.
He would have been the world champion for like 7 years.
Uh,
Like, no
we
doubt.
we made a joke. He would have went to WCW and WWF and gave them both blank pieces of paper and said,
Yeah.
"Whoever writes down the highest number, that's who I'm going to."
Yeah. Well, and the problem is that by the time he became a good promo, he was kind of a little over the hill as a wrestler. So, probably, the steroids took a little bit out of him too. I had an argument with, I think it was Sebastian, because we were talking about the Bucks and the
You got
Steiners,
way too big.
and the Bucks are on the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame ballot next year, and I have a vote, and so I said, like, if I've got
You
one
vote.
vote, go ahead. What?
You only got one. Wait a minute. Don't. Can't you vote up to 10
No, no,
people?
no. I said if I only had one vote,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
have to choose between the Bucks and the Steiners, I'm picking the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bucks, are as good in the ring. I mean, completely different styles, but
Yeah.
as good in the
Two
ring.
different
Yeah,
styles. Yeah.
completely different. But the Bucks have them on influence, and the Bucks have them on drawing. So, and because I think like the Steiners, I mean, they're influential for sure. You talk to a lot of young
I don't
teams
even know
now.
if they're influential though with the Steiners because how many teams wrestle like the Steiners?
Well,
You
the
got a
Creeds,
bunch of
the
teams that
Creeds,
wrestle like the Bucks.
yeah, yeah. But I
The
mean, I think
Creeds, oh, they're garbage, man.
well, they are, but they clearly are watching Steiner tapes.
Okay,
Because
all right.
yeah,
Well,
but
the only guy that wrestles like the Steiners is their own blood, all right? Fucking
yeah,
Braun Breaker.
Braun,
That's the
yeah, yeah.
only one, all right?
Well,
He wrestles
hardly
like his father, and he talks like his uncle.
Kurt Angle, maybe a little bit.
Oh, Kurt Angle. I love Kurt Angle.
Mhm.
And Sebastian and I brought up Kurt Angle because one of the matches we talked about, Paul, was the Iizuka and Fujinami versus Steiner's match. And there was a move that Rick did that I wish somebody would incorporate into their offense. Fujinami had Rick on his shoulders, and Iizuka was going to come off and try to give him the Doomsday Device. And Rick perfectly executed a belly-to-belly suplex off of Fujinami's shoulders onto Iizuka to the canvas. It was a 2 3/4 count. But I'm like, God damn, I wish somebody would use this. I could see today in AEW or WWE, if somebody used that as a finishing maneuver to win a match, the crowd would go ape shit.
I've never heard of that match, so I just wrote it down. I'm gonna watch it.
Man,
I'm gonna watch it today. Is that on New Japan World?
That is
Or is that
from
all Japan?
It's WCW. It's
Oh.
from Wrestle War 1992.
So I can get that on the network?
Yes, because
Oh,
and that was a great
perfect.
card because you had the War Games, my favorite War Games match in that card with the Dangerous Alliance versus Sting Squad.
Oh man. Okay, now my Saturday's screwed. I gotta watch this whole show.
That
Uh,
and if you just want to watch two matches, the
Yeah.
Steiners versus Suzuki and Fujinami, and the War Games match, you could
30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, an incredible tag team match, and it was brutal because the Steiners were stiff with Iizuka. They closed one of his eyes and broke his nose.
Oh my lord.
And
So
they tried it with Fujinami, but Fujinami gave the receipts and they backed off.
dude, I feel like I said, I feel like we just started and we've almost been going 45 minutes. So we got to wrap this up, but
All right,
I got to have
I'll
you on
come back.
again. Got to have
come
you on
back
again now.
another time when I have free time. I'll come back
Absolutely.
next time.
I mean,
Definitely.
I'm starting to get into the booking, more guests, getting people to come around for a second time. So
Right.
I definitely want to do that with you.
And then I have to have you in the future on my Legend of Sports podcast
Oh,
because I have to talk about hockey. And
I
so
I would love that.
to talk about Wayne Gretzky, you're the perfect guy because you watched Gretzky from the beginning of his career.
Well, when you talk about the how you watched Thomas Hearns from the beginning of his career,
Right.
I mean,
You
that's me
watch
with
Gretzky
Gretzky.
from there you go. So you're the
I
perfect guy.
so I was 9 years old when I first saw a Wayne Gretzky hockey card, and we used to play with our hockey cards, and we would throw them against the wall, and you would try to land on another card, and if you landed face up on the other card, you got to capture both cards.
So that's
So
that was the Canadian version. Do you know the American version of taking cards?
is it marbles?
No. With our baseball cards, we used to put card down on the table, and if your card matched my card with the same team or color, or vice versa, you got the whole pack. You kept putting cards down until the same colors matched. Like if it was we were 77, Reggie Jackson and Ron Guidry cards pop up. Boom, you got the whole pack. You had to do it until the cards match the same team or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. And then you got to capture
And you
all
got
of
to
them.
capture all the cards. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we would throw these cards against the thing, and by the time we were done, we do this for a couple of hours, and then we do it the next day, the next day, the next day. These cards were like horrible, like that you could barely recognize them. And those Wayne Gretzky rookie cards, 10 years later, are worth like $500, and I probably had 50 of them. And the ones that I had were like just thrashed. I mean, if I had just put those in a box,
Right. We all have that same era because I had Reggie Jackson and Ron Guidry. I had a strawberry rookie card. All that got damaged.
Yeah.
I still got my strawberry rookie card, but it's all torn on the edges. It ain't worth shit. But man, if we only knew back then, we were kids.
Yeah, but that was my first exposure, because at 9 years old, I mean, you're aware of hockey, but you're not really following it. And my dad wasn't a huge hockey fan, but that was kind of like collecting the hockey cards, and following the statistics. I was always a statistics guy, and I've carried that over even into wrestling.
Let me ask you a question. How often did you go to Winnipeg games, and how often did you see Gretzky live?
So I think I saw Gretzky live maybe 3 or 4 times. I would go to so the Jets, they would play here 4 times a year. And tickets weren't super expensive, like especially compared to now, but when you're a teenager, like the Jets left when I was 25, and I was pretty poor when we were coming up. And by that time the tickets were pretty expensive. But as a teenager, you could go to 7-Eleven and get tickets for $20. So if I had some money, I would go and we would go get tickets, and we would try to get to at least one playoff game a year. If the Jets ever made the playoffs, that's the one I'm going to use. And so I saw him probably 3 or 4 times, but I followed him, and he was my favorite player. Even though the Jets were the Oilers killers, Gretzky was my favorght player. And and I watched his last game. I have it on tape. I have it on VHS. I still throw it in the machine every once in a while and watch it. Against when he was playing for the New York Rangers.
I got to see him at the Garden.
Oh, really?
The only hockey game I ever went to in my lifetime. I was working in foster care, and one of the ladies who was in charge of getting donations for our foster care agency had a pair of tickets, and at the time I was dating a coworker. And she asked me if my coworker and I wanted to go to the Rangers game. I didn't think nothing of it. We went, and it's funny. I was a huge Islander fan back in the 80s,
right? Like you mentioned, yeah.
I never realized that the substitutions happened on the fucking ice.
Oh, like on the fly.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
I'm like, because she's like, Rob, you didn't tell me that's how they. I said, I didn't know.
You just assumed Mike Bossy played 60 minutes a game.
No, I thought doing the timeout or something.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah. I know Mike Bossy didn't play 60 because he had back. The Islanders had an incredible bench. They had the Islanders were the best team I ever saw in hockey for the 10 years I watched.
You know what? I can't tell you, like, I couldn't run down the lineup of the Jets like now, and I watched every single one of their games. But you talk about the Islanders in the early 80s, you had, you mentioned Bossy, Clark Gillies, Bob Nystrom,
Dennis
Dennis
Potvin.
Potvin, Brian Trotche, the
Mhm.
goalies, Billy Smith and Chico Resch.
Love Chico Resch, but Billy
yeah.
Smith was a tough son of a bitch. Yes.
You had the Ken Morrow, Butch
Ken
Goring.
Morrow. You had John Tonelli.
John Tonelli, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God, like, and all these guys. I mean, if I thought about it hard enough, I could probably give you their whole lineup.
Ken Morrow is the only hockey player to win a gold medal and a Stanley Cup in the same year. Right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. I think yeah, because it was
he was on the 80 team, right?
February 1980, and then
in May of 80, the Islanders, and it's funny, I got to see this game because it was on television. The Islanders versus the Philadelphia Flyers in May of 1980 was the first game broadcast on national television in almost a decade, NHL game.
Yeah.
And then you didn't get another one from over another 10 years before what was it? Fox got
Fox
the
or ESPN, one of the two. Yeah.
But I'm talking about over the air, not cable.
Oh, right. Yeah. Fox. Fox. Yeah.
It was crazy. I was like, I got lucky to see it because back then the Islanders, the Rangers, the Knicks, and the Nets, their road games would be televised on WOR Channel 9. But the home games were you could only you had to have cable. We didn't have cable because it was either on MSG or Sports Channel, and you could only hear it on the radio if you didn't have cable. And so
back then, everybody listened to the radio.
Yeah, and oh man, I love the radio. I still listen to a Met game. I'm a huge Met fan. I still listen to a Met game from time to time on the radio because those baseball announcers, Paul, they capture the game and you can see it in your head. You're a great baseball announcer.
We are blessed in Canada, and it's Toronto, but Toronto is really a national team because it's the only one we have in Canada. We have the absolute best broadcast team in baseball. I've heard it from people that are outside. And I don't know if you know who they are, but as soon as I mention the names, you'll go, oh yeah. And it's Buck Martinez and Dan Schulman. Like they do our games.
I love Buck. Yeah, Buck is a tremendous color commentator.
Yeah. Schulman is the best play-by-play guy. He does basketball. He does baseball.
Buck is one of the few announcers in any sport that went straight to the dugout from announcing, and he should have done it.
He should have seen it.
I seen it happen twice in baseball. Jerry Coleman was the Padres announcer, and they offered him a managerial job, and he did a horrible job, and then he went back to the broadcast booth.
Yeah, he is so good. He is so good in the booth. And
Buck Martinez.
And when Schulman's not available, we get Pat Tabler. So then Buck switches over to do play-by-play, and Pat Tabler comes in and does the commentary.
I remember Buck. There was an old Nintendo baseball game, Super Nintendo baseball game called RBI Baseball. Right,
I played it.
And Buck was one of the announcers on the game, and whoever did the game with him would go, oh, Buck, I think. Wait. Oh, Buck, he crushed it.
Oh my God.
So from that moment on, whenever I would watch a baseball game with my son and the guy hit a home run, I'd go, oh, Buck, he crushed it. And my son would be like, no, not that again.
All right.
You know what? I love that saying. Oh, Buck, he crushed it.
That is going to be the best places ever to wrap it up, but I will definitely have you on again. And I'll definitely come on your podcast. Just let me know when, and we'll do it.
Probably doing the summer.
Okay, cool.
I got to do a hockey one, and who else to do it on but Wayne Gretzky? I will have you on twice.
If you,
Gretzky,
you know what,
and then Messier.
I'll tell you something. If I don't know if you only do one-on-one, but if you want to have two guests on, I got the guy for you. And I'll tell you who. I mentioned him earlier, Ryan Pike.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan Pike is great, and he's a broadcaster, so he'll be good on the podcast.
And he's a huge Gretzky fan too.
Oh, he probably hates Gretzky, which might even be better because he's from Calgary. that's their mortal enemies. But he's a great dude, and he's a wrestling fan too.
Is he a Messier fan?
I don't know. He's a big Jerome McGinley fan. I'll tell you that. Another black hockey player who was
what I normally do at the end of the podcast, I have the guest tell me their 5 greatest players of that organization from
that
when
would
they first
be
started watching.
Ryan's the guy. Ryan's the guy.
Right?
Trust me.
With you as
yep.
I mean, that would be perfect. Yes. Yeah, so all right.
Yeah.
we'll talk about it.
All right, cool. So I want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time. A happy birthday in advance, as we get into the later half of our 50s. And again, this has been a great show. I hope everyone enjoyed it. So for Robert, I'm Grandpa Dez, and there's Hagler and Hearns, and this has been Cup of Joe.